Welcome to EPG Pathashala for Comparative Studies. I am Mala Ringanathan, Professor in the Department of English at Northeastern Hill University, Shillong. I shall be discussing the module Women's Theatre in India. This module has been written by me. Indian woman has been subjected to patriarchal control and subjugation for centuries. Yet, the problems of women in India started receiving public attention only during the nationalist movement, influenced by the Western liberal ideas, the native social reformers of the 19th and early 20th centuries openly expressed their outrage against cruel practices like sati and child marriages and stressed on the need for women to get educated. Gradually, several educational institutions were established to impart education to women. Inspired by national leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, lakhs of women came out and participated actively in India's freedom struggle. During this period, issues concerning women found expression in literary works of different progressive male writers. Some films and plays were also made centering problems of women. After attaining independence, India adopted a new constitution which formally professed the principle of gender equality and ensured women's access to education, employment, and politics. All these changes and developments of 20th century did bring about a positive change in the lives of educated middle class or upper middle class caste Hindu women, although they continue to be under the control of patriarchal ideology and practices. Women could still make considerable progress in several fronts after independence. The progress made by these advanced sections of women does not, however, reflect the reality of the Indian women as a whole. For these successful women constitute only a fraction of the Indian women. The women belonging to the working classes, small peasants, tribal communities, ethnic minorities, and lower castes, especially the Dalits, hardly receive public and media attention. Majority of women belonging to these sections still remain illiterate or economically dependent, unaware of their rights, exploited both at home and outside, and subjected to patriarchal domination and controlled by men, unaware of their rights, exploited both at home and outside, and subjected to patriarchal domination and controlled by men of their own community as well as other communities and by the society and the state. All that has been written about them in books and taught in the classrooms make little sense to these sections of women who rarely complete their school education. Stories, films, and plays built around the problems of elite women do not reflect the existential reality of marginalized women. The dominant parties and political leaders in the country use them as vote banks but do little to empower them in the true sense. The responsibility of educating, organizing, and empowering the women belonging to these communities in the country is therefore left to the progressive left, parties, feminist groups, Dalit organizations, and activist NGOs. The present paper throws light on how these parties, organizations, and groups have been making use of theatre as a tool to empower the women belonging to marginalized and exploited classes and communities. Now we'll talk about theatre in India. The theatre tradition in India is pretty old and strong in India. The privileged classes and castes have made use of traditional theatre, that is classical as well as folk theatre, as effective mediums to popularize their values, culture and mythologies And they have succeeded in extending their hegemony over lower castes and tribal people whose interests conflicts with them. During the British rule, the Indians were exposed to European theatre, its modernist content and forms. The English educated middle classes, inspired by the nationalist movement, made use of both classical and modernist theatre for promoting its goals and values. The nationalist theatre, apart from inculcating patriotic spirit among the people, gave expression to the changing values and aspirations of the rising middle class. The theatre did reflect to an extent the problems and dilemmas of upper caste middle class women. Both the form and content of the urban middle class theatre failed to reflect the problems and aspirations of the women belonging to the marginalized and oppressed communities. Naturally, the parties and organizations representing their interests could not rely on classical and modernist theatre. They had to innovate and adopt appropriate mediums to relate and communicate themselves to women belonging to these sections. It is these efforts which gave birth to the leftist, the feminist, and Dalit theatre in India. Now we move on to the left and progressive political theatre. In India, the left parties were the first to take up the cause of the exploited and the marginalized classes and communities, such as the industrial workers, peasants, Dalits, tribal people, and the poor women. The left parties effectively made use of theatre to attract, educate, and organize different sections of the downtrodden in their fight against colonial and feudal exploitation. Inspired by progressive ideas and ideals, way back in the 1940s, especially the mid 1940s, some progressive artists and intellectuals took the initiative to establish the Indian People's Theatre Association, commonly called as IPTA, to take theatre to the people and also inculcate in them the ideas of freedom, unity, social justice, and economic equality. The IPTA attracted several artists, particularly talented and socially committed artists who preached the ideas of democracy, secularism, and socialism to the masses through the media of songs, dances, and theatre. Several women artists like Durga Kote, Sulabha Arya, Shabana Asmi, and Pani Majumdar are products of the IPTA. From IPTA, several artists entered the cine field in the 50s and also 60s, and they contributed immensely to the quality of the film production in India. However, after the split of the Communist Party of India in the 50s, IPTA gradually lost its progressive appeal and was to a considerable extent absorbed by the system. Although it still upholds the values of secularism, democracy, and national integration. In the place of All India organizations like IPTA, several regional level theatre groups owing allegiance to different left parties sprang up in the 70s. Following the Naxalite movement in the late 60s and the emergency in the mid 70s, several left theatre and cultural groups like Jananatya Mandali, Jananatya Manch, famously called as Janam, Prajyanatya Mandali, Puragamana Kala Sahitya Sangha, Janavadi Sanskritik Morcha, began to play active role in educating and organizing the masses in the industries, villages, slums, as well as forest areas. Under Safdar Hashmi's leadership, Janam perfected and popularized the street theatre in North India and took the theatres to the doorsteps of the people. Janam has done plays on price rise, elections, communalism, economic policy, unemployment, trade union rights, globalization, women's rights, and education system. Andhra Pradesh-based Jananatya Mandali, led by revolutionary poets like Gadar, inspired several thousands of poor villagers, industrial workers, women, students, and youth to join the Naxal movement. Gadar adopted folk tradition of Vidi Bhagavatam, Ogu Kada, and also Yellama Kada to convey revolutionary message to peasants and workers. Other progressive political theatres like Prajanatya Mandali, Puragamana Kala Sahitya Sangha, Chennai Kalaikuru, Jana Sanskriti, Samudaya, Janavedi Sanskritik Morcha, all these groups also utilized folk traditions and also techniques appropriate to the region and peoples of the state where they have been working. Apart from the highlighting the issues concerning the exploitation of workers and peasants, the left progressive theatre has also focused on the problems of Dalits, tribal people, and women. Janam has many popular plays on the problems of women, such as Aurat, meaning woman, Ye bhi hinsa hai, meaning this is also violence, and Wo boluti, which means she started speaking. So these are some of the popular plays by Janam. Gadar has written many popular songs on women, such as Nannu Kanna Tallulara, which means mothers who gave birth to me, which portrayed the sufferings, sacrifices, and struggles of the poor women in the villages. The women artists participate in the performances of the left theatre as singers, dancers, actors, and makeup artists. Some, like Mahashweta Devi, had made big names as leftist playwright and also as a cultural activist. And some command considerable respect among the left supporters. Yet, some women activists in the left movement started feeling that the left movement, with its emphasis on economic problems and class issues, subordinates women's problems to class struggle. To the leftists, patriarchal domination is not as big an issue as the class exploitation. But the women whose problems start right in their homes find it difficult to identify themselves wholly with the leftists, to whom patriarchy is not an immediate issue of concern. Moreover, the left theatre continued to be dominated by male artists, playwrights, and directors. Although the left theatre was sympathetic to the women's issues, it did not allow full freedom for women activists to express themselves through cultural and theatre groups. Hence, there arose the need for women's theatre, especially feminist theatre. Now we'll discuss women's and feminist theatre. Women's theatre or feminist theatre in India draws women activists of various types. Those who at one time actively associated with the left and progressive movements and came out of it disillusioned by what they viewed as marginalization of women issues in the movement. Secondly, the liberal humanist women who abhor class struggles and violence. Third, women from academics influenced by Western feminist movements and thought. Fourthly, women social activists actively engaged in development activities at grassroots. These women target patriarchy in its different manifestations and use theatre to educate, organize, and also mobilize the women for their rights. Today, there are a host of such women and feminist cultural activists and organizations in different parts of the country, working outside the organized political mainstream of both left and right varieties, actively engaged in creating awareness to the women at the grassroots about their status and rights. Maya Rao, B. Jayashree from Bangalore, Vidya-mitra from Mumbai, Sushma Deshpande, Jyoti Subhash from Pune, Anjana Puri from Bhopal, Vidya-mitra, Jayati Bose from Kolkata, Mallika Sarabhai from Ahmedabad, Veena Pani Chawla from Pondicherry, Neelam Mansingh Chowdhury, Balbir Kaul from Chandigarh, Kalairani from Chennai, Veena Pani Chawla from Pondicherry, and Delhi veterans like Kirti Jain, Amal Alena, Anuradha Kapoor, Anamika Haksar, and Tripurari Sharma are some of the leading women feminist activists belonging to this mode. Many among them have started their own theatre groups or work in one or the other cultural groups. Alaripu, established by Tripurari Sharma, Darpana of Mallika and Mrinalini Sarabhai, Voicing Silence Group associated with M.S. Swaminathan Research Foundation, Chennai, Snehidhi Kalaikuru in Tamil Nadu, Saheli in Maharashtra, Sakhi Kendra in Kanpur, Himmat Group in Gujarat are some of the known women theatres. Apart from them, there are many small and little known women theatre groups operating in different towns and cities in India. Many NGOs working for women have started their own cultural troupe to supplement their programs and activities among different groups of women in the villages, slums, among the sex workers and battered women. Some of the known plays that such organizations performed include Sri Sangar's anti-dowry play called Om Swaha, Jyoti Mamsekar's Mulhi Sali Ho, which means girl is born, Malini Bhattacharya's Mayo Dilo Shajiye, Lakshmi Chandrasekhar's play called Just a Woman, Sushma Deshpande's docudrama Hoi Mein Savitri Boy, Sushama Deshpande's Tichya Aichi Ghosh on Tamasha Women, B. Jayashree's Manthara, Nadira Babar's play called Begum Jan, Usha Ganguly's Rudali, Kirti Jain's Aur Kitne Tukde, Maya Rao's A Deeper Fried Jam, and Anuradha Kapoor's The Antigone Project. The plays focus on a wide range of women-related themes such as dowry, female infanticide, gender discrimination, women's education, marriage, search for identity, domestic violence, the effects of partition, communal riots, state repression on women, sexual harassment, women's empowerment, and rights. These theatre activists use a range of techniques to present their ideas and themes. They have made use of both classical and folk dance forms like Bharatanatyam, Kathakali, Kudiyattam, Lavani, etc. Many have used even Hindu mythologies and reinterpreted mythological women characters like Sita, Draupadi, Savitri, Brihannala, Shikanti, and so on, from women's and feminist perspectives. Apart from such characters, they also deconstruct several contemporary Indian and Western playwrights and projected women characters in a new light. They take to both formal and informal public platforms in order to present their performance. They have been making use of different and varied forms of methods and techniques, borrowing from classical, Western, folk, and leftist traditions. Many use group theatre techniques, street theatre forms, abandoning the proscenium, Brechtian methods of staging, and also Augusto Boal's forum technique. Decisions regarding themes, characters, forms, techniques, and so on, especially to be used in these plays, are often arrived at in the workshops that they organize, involving actors and women at the grassroots. Although efforts are being made by committed, educated women activists to understand and represent the problems of the Dalit, tribal, and other marginalized women, in general, there has been resentment among the women at the grassroots against such representation of their concerns and problems by the educated upper caste women activists. Influenced by black feminist thought in recent years, Dalit feminist literature and theatre is making its presence felt by focusing on class, caste, and patriarchal oppression of the Dalit women in the Indian society. These Dalit women are giving voice to their feelings, concerns, and problems through songs and plays using Dalit theatrical forms, techniques, and instruments. But this trend is still in its primitive stage. Apart from the Dalit women, there are tribal women and Muslim women in India with their own problems. Because of illiteracy, family control, and economic dependency, the women in these communities are yet to come out of their shells. Women's and feminist theatre in India could make little contribution also to the Muslim and tribal women as well. To conclude, theatre tradition in India is very old, but the use of theatre for bringing about a social change in the lives of the women at the grassroots is quite recent. Yet, different forms of activist theatre that came into existence have been able to make the poor, illiterate, exploited, and subjugated women living in the villages and urban slums conscious of their problems and rights. The popular techniques and forms like street theatre, folk traditions, and so on used by these theatre groups provide both entertainment and education to the women at the grassroots. Since this kind of theatre needs little money, efforts, proficiency, it becomes easy to involve women in plays as audience, actors, and critics. Their participation in workshops and discussions help the women theatre activists to come out with new ideas, forms, and techniques. The success of the popular theatre should not be measured only in terms of material change. Structural transformations in the lives of these women can take place only when the oppressive and exploitative structures are overcome. Theatre plays a role in making the poor and illiterate women in understanding the nature of these structures that obstruct their path towards progress. Political consciousness that it imparts helps in organization and mobilization of these sections of women for redressing their grievances. Apart from material benefits, the utility of theatre should be judged from what it does to lives of women who are engaged in it actively as participants. For women activists like Tripura Sharma, theatre is much more than a profession or a career. They look at theatre as a means of expression, a means to share and talk about the lives of women. Theatre provides a platform for discussion on social issues and acts as an intimate way of revealing and connecting lives of women audiences and sharing their perspective with the world. It gives space, voice, visibility, and power to the marginalized women. Through cultural intervention, theatre aims at transforming people's consciousness and helps in building up a sense of unity and identity. Although the oppressed and marginalized women in India have to wait for a couple of decades more to overcome their social and economic problems, popular theatre has already initiated a positive change in their personal lives by providing them political education and confidence to face the challenges ahead of them. With these notes, I end the session of the module titled Women's Theatre in India. Thank you.